You ever hear of the Dyatlov Pass Incident that took place in the Soviet Union?
Sorry, say that again.
I'm trying to rush through it so I don't, because my Russian accent's not great. Dyatlov?
Oh, I thought he said Dyke Love. That's what I heard. I was like, what? Okay, go ahead.
How is it again? Give me one more.
Dyatlov Pass.
Dyatlov Pass. Okay, so ready? February 1st, 1959, a group of 9 highly experienced Russian hikers / skiers, they set out for a venture where they're basically trying to go from grade 2 hikers to grade 3 hikers by going on this mountain hike in Siberia, like middle of nowhere, Russia. You can see here on the map, that dot right there is where it was in Russia. So absolutely nothing going on out there. So it's insane they were doing this in the first place. The day later, all 9 of them mysteriously just suddenly died in the most gruesome ways you could ever imagine. So here's some of the things that happened that had the investigators' mind blown. So the first 2 people they found, so it's minus 30 degrees there, right? All of a sudden, they cut a hole outside from like the inside of their tent to escape, run away from the tent in their underwear in minus 30-degree temperature.
Have you guys ever been, Vinny? I know you were stationed in Montana. I know it gets cold there. Have you ever been in negative temperatures? We did. Remember when it was 2014?
It's different.
There was a thing called the polar vortex when I was living in Cleveland.
Yeah.
And the temperature dropped to the negatives. And back then I smoked cigarettes. And I had to go outside to smoke. And it was like, it was to the point where breathing in hurt.
Right.
So to go into negative 30. Well, Vinny, do you remember, like, did it ever get to the negatives when you were in Montana?
What do you, minus 50 or I forgot with wind chill? Bro, it was to the point where if you stood outside and took a breath in, all the nose hairs turned into icicles on them. And then I remember when I was there, 2 kids that just got to Montana that were never dealt with the snow or whatever, they went out and they were like, we're going to go hiking because we're excited to be here. Bro, they lost because it started snowing. They couldn't find their way back. They died that night. Two people. Yeah, bro, the cold is nothing to play games with. If you don't have the proper gear to stay overnight, bro, and your body goes into hypothermia, you're finito, bro. It's not like, complain all you want about the heat. You never want to deal with the cold, especially, dude, Russia? Are you freaking crazy?
Familiar
And just
so,
familiar
even
with
if you are in Dyke Love Pass or Dyke's Love, I don't know what the hell it's called.
But familiar with the story as well. Like, these guys were certified ski instructors
they're
and
pros.
experienced hikers who knew how to hike in Siberia.
So what the hell would be so terrifying to you that they because the way they would insulate this thing, they tied their tent shut, with a really secure thing, so it would take a while to undo it. But the evidence showed they spontaneously, frantically cut a hole from the inside of their tent to run out of it. All 9 of them run out in different directions. The first 2 people they find them next to a tree. Their hands are worn down to nubs because they've been frantically trying to climb up a tree. They found flesh as high as 16 feet up on the tree as if they're trying to get away from something. So I don't know how the hell you explain that. Then the next people they find about somewhere between like a mile away from those people, their skulls bashed in. Their chest is caved in, the investigator said, in a way that looked like they got hit by a car. Couldn't have been caused by humans.
Jeez.
Yeah, and then what else with that one? So and then the next 4 people, they were found 2 months later, and some of them had their eyeballs removed. One of them was frozen in position as if they were screaming. Their tongue was removed, and there was enough blood inside their stomach to indicate that they were the tongue was removed while the person was alive.
Is that him?
That's one of the frozen people, yeah. But so that's another weird thing too, is the last people that were found, they did have clothes on as if they were they had taken clothes from the other people. So all kinds of things, and then there was radioactive debris detected on their clothing too.
The fuck?
Yeah.
So was it like
Dude, that's aliens. You already know that's aliens.
Well, so
there's
a couple theories behind this. So some of them are, one was that there's an avalanche. That's the official narrative of Russia, by the way. I mean, I don't think, that would cause the some of the damage to the people, but like the radioactive stuff, the tongue being ripped out, the eyes being ripped out, like why'd they run out of their thing in their underwear in the first place? And then some people say there's potentially secret military testing going on. They came across something they weren't supposed to see. Then there's a really creepy one. Stories about the Mansi people who spoke of cursed lands and sinister, unseen forces that roam the mountains. They believed hikers had disturbed something ancient and evil. Some people speculate maybe it was a Yeti that did this. Some say that there's reports of there was orange lights flashing around the sky that night, so they think maybe aliens could have been involved. One of the investigators said that, quote, I suspected at the time and now almost sure that the bright flying spears had a direct connection to the group's death. And one interesting thing, so this is the last picture that was taken on the camera from one of the photographers, and the camera's the only thing that they grabbed, not their shoes, not their clothing, not their knives, not their flashlights, but they grabbed the camera, and this was the last picture taken. So don't know what the hell it is, but it's one of the things that's obsessed about and speculated on. Like, why is there a bright light in front of the camera in a place that was pitch dark?
You gotta get it for the cam.
So to this day, the Dyatlov Pass incident remains one of the most perplexing mysteries in modern history. Despite continuous investigations, these official narratives that was an avalanche. Visitors to the area to this day report an eerie feeling as the mountain itself is watching, waiting, and on the dark, moonless nights, some claim to hear the desperate cries of the hikers. So, what do you guys think? What makes the most sense based off all the evidence?
Vinny first.
Oh well, dude, listen. Anybody like, but I love these type of things because obviously there's so many options. But the fact that you're saying that this type of blunt force to the chest cavity and the head and all that stuff, bro. Let me explain something to you. After reading that book, Chaos, that Candace told me to read by Tom. Damn, I forgot his name.
About the CIA and the Manson stuff.
Let me explain something to you. Our government would take people, drug them, try to make them put electrodes in their head, try to make them by remote control murder each other. Then when they wouldn't do it, they would just kill the people and then burn them alive. So knowing that, and that's just a small part of what they do, and that's just our government.
Yeah.
Who knows what they were doing? Maybe they did stumble upon something that they didn't see, but it doesn't, listen, with all the evil forces out there, I wouldn't put it past some other crazy shit happening. I think the fact that people think that, there's no way that could have happened. There's no way this. How can you explain? Because if these are facts, Brandon, 16 feet climbing a tree in freezing ass Russia, that doesn't sound like that's normal. Or having their chest caved into where you're like, okay, there's no way that a human being could have done that. I mean, dude, who knows what the hell happened? I mean, and again, it's been so freaking long. It's not like they're going to try to get to the bottom of it now. You know what I mean?
No.
I go with Yeti. I love, I do it right away because I love Bigfoot. I am obsessed because there's so much of the world that we have not discovered, which is always amazing to me. We spend all of this money to travel outside, allegedly. If you believe Bryce Mitchell, we've never been to space. But if we have penetrated the firmament and there is a thing called space, we spend all this money to investigate space, an area we have no idea about. But the planet that we live on, we haven't gone to the deepest depths of the oceans. We haven't gone to the highest points of the mountains. I mean, when I went to Colorado and we went hiking through an abandoned ski lodge, and at one point, my buddy and I, we were on mushrooms, but it was fine. This was a long time ago. I'm walking through the hills, and a lot of it, actually, because we started panicking, because we're like, why is this ski town abandoned? Where'd everybody go? What happened to all the people? And then you start looking around, and you're like, oh, wow, look how much space there is. Look at how much land goes uncovered. So, like, I do a lot of driving across the state of Florida. I do a lot of stand-up. A lot of the stand-up, Vinny, driving is 90% of the gig. The 10% is getting on stage and telling the jokes. The other 90 is writing the jokes and driving to the gigs.
Yeah.
I do a lot of driving, and there's a lot of this state that is untouched. You'll go across, it's not just people go Alligator Alley, the Everglades. It's not just the Everglades. You go up to where I live in Palm Beach, and you cut across to go to Tampa. It's not the Everglades. It's still swampland, but it's flat. But there's miles and miles and acres upon acres of undiscovered land that people have never touched. So to me, the idea that there's creatures on this planet that we have not discovered seems 100% logical. And to me, I go, Bigfoot's one of them.
Right. But how does it rip their eyeballs out with precision?
It's Bigfoot. That's how.
But their face wasn't messed up. There's no claw marks or anything. Precision eyeballs taken out, precision tongue taken out.
Now,
and no evidence of other people being around, by the way.
The official explanation that they went with was that it was predation on the bodies by, small scavengers, birds, mice, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That, the birds will pluck the eyes out of a corpse or go after the tongue because it's the easiest thing to eat. But that doesn't explain how this was done on bodies that were buried.
Right.
And this goes back to the avalanche explanation, which doesn't make any sense because, first of all, there was no sign of an avalanche at that area when they went because they found the first bodies within a few days.
Yep.
They looked around. The slope had no sign of an avalanche. There was no, and also, like I said, these were experienced hikers and skiers. Everybody knows not to pitch your tent where there could be an avalanche.
Right.
It's very obvious when there might be one. You know not to camp there. The bodies down the hill that were found way later, they said, oh, they were buried in the avalanche. Well, then why weren't the ones uphill buried? But also that they were under only about 4 feet of snow, which is not enough to have come from an avalanche, but enough to come from snowfall. But if they're buried, how are their animals scavenging off the corpses? Nobody can really answer that. The avalanche explanation makes no sense. But so many other things don't add up about this either.
You set me up. We were talking about this yesterday, and I'm gonna steal what you said because
Steal what I said?
yeah.
Okay,
'cause
go ahead.
I'm your resident misinformation czar here. Every time you get to 90% of solving this, I know way too much about this case, by the way. And the most gangster thing about the case is that the Russians, this is the Russians being Russian, open casket. All the bodies mangled, open casket.
Yep. And they were all discolored, by the way.
Hold on.
Weird looking.
Before we move on, so you were aware of this, and you were aware of this, and you were aware of this.
Yeah.
So 3 of the 6 people on this podcast, Vinny, were you aware of this story before?
No, hold on. No, absolutely not. And what just hit me again was, what the hell is radioactive? What'd you say that was on the bodies?
Yeah, there was they detected radiation on their clothing, high levels of radiation.
High levels,
and their
meaning
eyebrows
they're-
were burned off
not-
too.
Yeah, they didn't have a field trip to Chernobyl and then came
No,
the hiking
and-
thing.
and-
There's no explanation for that. That's dude. That is like, if you had to really stop for a second and say, why do they have plutonium? What was it? Radiation?
Yeah,
from
radiation on their
plutonium?
clothing.
What, dude? What explanation do you have unless maybe whatever got them that came from somewhere else has this type of stuff on their vehicle or on them, or I don't. Dude, no. So Rob, to answer your question, no, I had no idea.
So, and Shane, did you know about this story before?
No, I had no idea.
All right. So it's not super well known. You 3 knew about it. All right, Humberto, go back, because I was just wondering how well known is this theory
There's
or
been
this
a
story?
lot of movies and documentaries about it.
But the thing is, there's like 6 solid theories. They all get to the 90% mark.
Something obliterates it.
And something just destroys the theory. So my spidey sense tingles up, government cover up. Like Brendan, he didn't include the Gulag theory because there was a Gulag there, and they thought prisoners escaped and they raped and killed everyone. And then there's a few more, but every time you get to 90%, okay, that's that. Like the avalanche theory, aliens, fireballs, government cover up. You get to 90%. So I think they mess with the scene enough so you can never know what's true or not. Then again, these are communists. All they do is lie. Everything goes back to communism.
Yeah, well, speaking of communists, my thought was apparently Stalin tried to create an ape-man hybrid where he was trying to do genetic engineering and create a super soldier for the Soviet Union. I'm pretty sure this is real.
Yeah.
So that would explain the radiation, and then that thing could have just been hanging out in the Siberian wastes, just chasing people, or it was Ed Buck and Ted Lieu.
Because here's the other thing I wanted to mention that doesn't make any sense. They found footprints of the people fleeing the tent, and they were not spaced out like people sprinting. They were the distance of people leisurely walking. So they frantically cut their way out of the tent and then leisurely walked off into the blizzard, where they then sustained violent injuries, and like the chest cavities caved in like they were beaten with pressure. Didn't leave soft tissue damage like being punched. It was like an impact that caused that damage without bruising to the surrounding area.
Oh yeah, that's right too. No outside wounds. It was all internal.
Nothing to indicate that they sustained a beating, but their entire chest was flattened like a pancake.
There's a guy named Ilya Ivanok. Ivanov. He was born in July of 1870, died in March of 1932. He was a Russian and Soviet biologist who specialized in the field of artificial insemination and interspecific hybridization of animals. He is famous for his controversial attempts to create a human-ape hybrid by inseminating 3 female chimpanzees with human sperm.
Wow.
So this does exist.
Fucking
Ape
communist.
man.
Yeah.